The opioid crisis continues to take thousands of lives each year. 108,000 people died in the United States last year from drug overdoses. That's a 15% increase from the previous year, according to the CDC. Rasmussen reports surveyed Americans on their sense of urgency in regards to this issue. They found that 40% of American people that live in an area with an opioid problem. 39% said they do not. When asked if the opioid drug crisis has gotten better or worse over the last year, 10% said better, 44% worse, 29% said about the same, and 16% said not sure. And when people were asked if the Biden administration is doing enough to fight the opioid drug problem, 19% said yes, 6% said no, 25% said not sure. Let's bring in Rasmussen Reports head pollster Mark Mitchell to break this all down for us. Welcome back, Mark. And I just want to say that I am so glad that you guys continue to poll this issue, because it really is one of the biggest problems in our country, though you wouldn't know that if you follow the news. And I think that's why a lot of people just don't know the measures that are not being taken by this administration. So I'm really glad that you continue to focus on this, because we all should be. I know I come from an area where it's high opioid use, and we lose people all the time to it.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a pleasure to be on. This is a really interesting set of questions. We started asking it when Trump made it a part of his platform. And it is such a challenging issue, and it's so diffuse, and it impacts so many people that it makes sense to ask them, because sometimes you just can't measure a problem like that. But then part of the other aspect is when you ask it over a series of years, when there's such a drastic change in the political climate, perhaps the movements are more about people and politics than they are about the actual issue itself. I'd like to start with that first question about whether President Biden isn't doing enough for the issue of opioid crisis. So we've been asking periodically over the last year what voters think about President Biden and how he's addressing certain issues. And we've seen the same general pattern where twice as many people say no as they do yes. This one particularly stands out, and whether it's about the opioid crisis or just current sentiments about Biden is up in the air. But only 19 people say yes. That's one of the first times it's been under 20%. And the party internals are really horrifying for Biden. Only 10% of Republicans say Biden's doing enough, but only 9% of independents say the same thing. And Democrats, it's their guy. They say 36% say he's doing enough, but that's under a majority and closer to 1/3. So those are really troubling numbers. Now, the question about is the issue getting better or worse? I think he has some pretty interesting stuff in it as well. So only 10% say better, really a low number. And that's actually pretty steady across the board. 8% of Republicans, 14% of Democrats, 9% of independents. But I thought it was really neat to go back and look at how people responded 3 years ago. And it shows something a little funny about Republicans. If Democrats and independents asked the same question 3 years ago, said pretty much exactly the same thing. The numbers are within 1 or 2%. But Republicans were 3 times as likely under Trump to say that the issue is getting better, and half as likely to say the issue is getting worse. Now, as far as what Americans think about living in a problem, is the area they live in, does it have an opioid crisis? I think those numbers are actually reassuring. So when we asked in 2017, the first time we asked this question, 44% of people said yes, 33% said no. Today, the number was 40% say yes. So lower, but within close to the statistical margin of error. The issue peaked in 2019, where 46% of people said yes. So I think the question mark there is it because the crisis is getting better, or is it because it isn't in the news as much?
I would say it's that last reason, because if you have a 15% increase in opioid overdose deaths, then clearly it's not getting better. And I do know, and that under the last administration, it was a big focus for policy. And it was led by, a high-profile person in the administration, Kellyanne Conway. President Trump was constantly talking about it, so Americans were more aware. that there was a crisis and there was something being done about it. Now that has been really rolled back under this administration, and they're more focused on safe usage, right? That's their whole thing, is giving people safe needles, giving them places to go to get high that they feel is a more controlled environment, which is a different approach. And I guess you could debate which approach works better, Mark.
Visible. Yeah, one that makes it less visible, and also there's probably a component of COVID sucking the oxygen out of something like this. Right before I came on, though, I checked Google Trends just to get a general idea. And if you compare opioid to the word fentanyl, there's a pretty stark difference of awareness of one issue going down and awareness of the other issue drastically shooting up. So that's probably something that we're going to be pulling on again in the near future. And as you know, the underlying issues and causes of those two crises are very different.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, I appreciate that you guys are keeping your finger on the pulse of this issue, because, again, it's one of the major issues facing our country that doesn't get talked about enough. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.